let's pretend I'm a young SEO and I read this report. It's really cool, gives me a lot of insight, or there are other reports that have similar kinds of findings. How much can I then take what's in here and generalize across categories, across verticals? Can I just say, here's a template for all SEO best practices, regardless of the category? Or do I need to understand what do I need to understand about the differences
Yeah, I
between
think that would
categories?
be a bit of a leap to then say this works for every vertical, but that's why we did 3 different verticals. So anybody reading this, I would encourage them to get the auto version and then the cannabis version. The cannabis version we're releasing in January just because it's about to be holidays and we don't want to get lost in the noise. But when you look at all 3 together, that's when you can really start to make the conclusions of, okay, this thing clearly matters because I can see across all 3 verticals, the averages are wildly different between the 3, but you can still see the story that comes out that the guys at position 1 are always doing more of or better of whatever tactic it is than the guys at position 10. It's not to say that reviews are more important than schema, which is more important than photos, which is more important than Google posts. We're not trying to do any of that. We're just trying to say, do the guys at position 1 do it better than the guys at position 10? And in nearly every case, they do. So then I think you can make the conclusion that this particular tactic or activity should have some positive influence, assuming I'm doing all of it. Because I think one of the things that I've run into a lot speaking at all the conferences that I do is I'll list out all the best practices in my 40-minute session. Here's all the things you need to do that are going to be the most influential. And then a year later, I'll see somebody that'll be like, man, I did it and it didn't make a difference. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, I followed the thing that you said about reviews. Okay, cool. Did you do the other stuff too? Well, no, I just did reviews because those are the easiest. Kind of like we were talking about earlier. People are going to use the things that are most generally accessible and they don't get into the technical nerdy stuff. And I think the real story here is the numbers are different between each vertical, but the general idea of you need to have the right categories, you need to have the right hours, you need to have schema, you need to optimize your title tags and meta description. Like all of that messaging is that really does matter. It's just how far you take it depends on the vertical that you're in.
Well, what
I would
go
add,
ahead.
Greg, that those things are table stakes in the sense,
Exactly.
and that the only way to determine what the differentiators are is to do the kind of research we're doing, where we understand that in storage, here's what people are looking for, and in legal, here's what people are looking for, so that understanding that differentiator allows them to do all the basics that Greg's talking about, all the table stakes, but then whatever it needs to be 5% more attractive or 10% more attractive
Yeah,
to the user.